process. George Washington, sorry, that went back a slide. George Washington says this: the basis of our political systems is the right of the people to make and to alter their constitutions of government. The people can change it. But the Constitution, which at any time exists till changed by an explicit and authentic act of the whole people, is sacredly obligatory upon all. Okay? The people can change the Constitution. How? Through the amendment process. But until it's changed, it's sacredly obligatory upon all people. That's the only way it's changed. Otherwise, we have to follow it. Okay? Now, you guys with me? Are we good? Yeah. Need a quick break? Okay. No falling asleep on me. Okay, here's this lady named Jean Marie Laska. She's an Eastern reporter. She wrote an article that showed up in GQ magazine called Guns Are Us. And she's from the East Coast, and she wanted to come and find out how does this gun control thing work. So she volunteered to work as a department store clerk in Arizona for a week at a gun shop or whatever. I can't think of the word. Anyway. Okay, so she was there. She said, it's crazy. People are walking around with guns and talking about calibers and grains and bullets and all this stuff. It's just nuts. You know, in her article, she's going off on all this stuff. And you realize, well, you know, she comes from a different culture. Now, here's what she said in this article. So these are the people who stand at the front lines guarding America against its lunatic mass murders, clerks at Walmart, clerks at sporting goods stores, minimum wage cashiers. They're the ones? And I totally agree with her. I don't want clerks who are supposed to be checking people out from a department store to be in charge of protecting me. In fact, where was the Walmart clerk at that theater in Aurora, Colorado? Where were they? Aren't they doing their job? Where was the minimum wage cashier at that church? Oh wait, he didn't need to be there. Someone was armed. I agree with her. I don't want them to. That's not their job. Their job isn't to protect. They're not the front line. The front line is me. Me. I'm going to protect myself. Like Patrick Henry said, if self-defense is what it's all about, then give me my self-defense. Don't take it from me, right? Okay? Give you a couple of quotes here. Firearms stand next in importance to the Constitution itself. They are the American people's liberty teeth and keystone under independence. From the hour the Pilgrims landed to the present day, events, occurrences, and tendencies prove that to ensure peace, security, and happiness, the rifle and pistol are equally indispensable. The very atmosphere of firearms anywhere restrains evil interference. They deserve a place of honor with all that's good. Good quote. A president of the United States saying that. Third president, Thomas Jefferson. Laws that forbid the carrying of arms disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides. For an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man. Why? Quite simply because laws only control those who keep the law. Someone who's going to murder someone doesn't go, oh shoot, they passed a law last week, I can't do this. It's simple. Gun control laws only work on law-abiding citizens. Yeah. Okay, another quote. Thomas Paine, the supposed quietude of a good man allures the ruffian, while on the other hand, arms, like laws, discourage and keep the invader and plunderer in awe, and preserve order in the world as property. The same balance would be preserved were all the world destitute of arms. If we didn't have any arms at all, yeah, we'd have that same balance, wouldn't we? But since some will not, others dare not lay them aside. Horrid mischief would ensue were the law-abiding deprived of the use of them. Okay, here's one of my favorite quotes. Whoops, went ahead too far. Those who hammer their guns into plowshares or plow for those who do not. I like Jefferson. It's pretty witty. Okay, now we're going to get into some modern day abuses. Okay, here's the first one. There's a group called the Jews for the Preservation of Firearm Ownership. They wrote a book called Lethal Laws. They said this: the downside of gun control is genocide. There have been at least 7 major genocides in the 20th century involving 50 to 60 million victims. That's low. In every case, the gun control law was enforced before the genocide began. Okay, so the way my mind works is that, well, that's a nice generality. Give me the details. So I went online, figured it out, researched it. And this is actually an incorrect data, because in 1994 is when they wrote this book. That's the same year, though, that Rwanda had their internal affair in this huge genocide. So you'd have to add, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or millions there as well. But the 7 major ones they're talking about. In 1915, the Turks persecuted Armenians. Now this target, this is not just the Armenians, just like some of these aren't just these people. There's a whole group of them. But they killed 1 to 1.5 million. The Soviet Union, over a 25-year period or so, killed 20 million. That's low in a lot of people's estimates. Hitler, 12-year period, killed 13 million. China 20 million is a very low estimate there as well. Guatemala, in 20 years, killed 100,000 Mayans. Uganda, 8 years, killed 300,000 Christians. In Cambodia. When you think of Cambodia, who do you think of? Who's the oppressor there? Pol Pot. That's what you think, and that's not true. Pol Pot killed a lot of people, but this data comes from the Khmer Rouge. Pol Pot killed a lot of people. And then when the Khmer Rouge came in power, these communists came in power, they said, we know how bad it's been. We're going to provide security. Give me your guns. And they did. You bet. And what happened? They killed 1 million of them. Okay, in every case, what did they say? In every case, the reason the genocide happened because a gun control law was a predecessor. That's how it happens. Why? Because it's common sense. An unarmed man can't defend himself. It's simple. Okay? Now, does this happen in the United States? Look a little bit here in the United States. This little pamphlet called Freedom from War was issued in 1961 under the JFK administration. Freedom from War, the United States Program for General and Complete Disarmament in a Peaceful World. Really? Okay? That to me sounds a lot like no one gets arms except for me. Who's saying that? Stalin? Hitler? The Khmer Rouge? Okay? The disbanding of all national armed forces. This is the first objective in this book. And this is an official State Department book, okay? This pamphlet that they produced, they're proud of it. The disbanding of all national armed forces and the prohibition of their reestablishment in any form whatsoever, other than those required to preserve internal order and for contributions to United Nations Peace Force. No one gets guns except for United Nations. That's how we have freedom from war. That's what Stalin said. No one gets guns but my guys. That's how we're going to provide peace and freedom. No one gets guns but my guys. That's what Hitler said, right? This isn't rocket science. Another State Department, Lincoln Bloomfield, we paid for, the taxpayers paid for a U.S. State Department report, and he said this: a world effectively controlled by the United Nations is one in which world government would come about through the establishment of supranational institutions, characterized by universal membership and some ability to employ physical force. Effective control would thus entail a preponderance of political power in the hands of a supranational organization, rather than in individual units, and would assume the effective operation of a general disarmament agreement. So question, how do you confiscate guns and disarm a population if you don't know where those guns are? Gun registry, you bet. Okay, you can't, but if you have a gun registry, it makes it a little bit easier, doesn't it?
Question?
Yes?
Who published the
Both of those were State Department published. Anyone know?
UN.
New York City, outside of the United Nations building. Anyone want to guess whose gun that is? Is it the United Nations gun? No, it's the citizens' gun. That's who it is. Okay, it's not the United Nations gun. It's the citizens' gun. Because the United Nations gun is semi-automatic, or not, right? This is the twisted barrel here on the citizens' gun. Now, it's interesting that a nation that loves and promotes the right to keep and bear arms, we belong to an international organization that has a whole entire department of dozens and dozens of employees called the Office for Disarmament Affairs. The UN has an entire Office for Disarmament Affairs. And they just recently announced that they're going to move that office from Geneva to New York City. Kind of ironic. Okay, we're going to skip ahead 40 years. The last one was 1961, right? We're going to skip ahead 40 years. So a lot happened in between, but just in the interest of time, the United Nations Program of Action. Here's what this program of action was: to develop and implement where possible effective disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration programs, including the effective collection, control, storage, and destruction of small arms and light weapons. That's what the UN Program of Action is. Destruction of small arms, collection, storage, etc., okay? Now, in July 2012, there was an arms trade treaty. An arms trade treaty that came across, and 51 senators sent a letter to President Obama and to Secretary of State Clinton to say, hey, look, this is a no-go. We're not going to do this. And so it was political suicide. President Obama wasn't going to go through with this arms trade treaty right before an election. No way. Now, if the United Nations, this is cynical, I'll give you this, okay? It's cynical. If the United Nations is out to get our guns and has been for 50, 60 years, why would they schedule an arms trade treaty, a gun control treaty, right at the same time when they know President Obama's hands are going to be tied politically? He'll have to vote against it. Wouldn't that make him look pretty pro-gun? Pretty anti-gun control to say, yeah, look, the proof's in the pudding. I voted against this thing. I don't want this trade treaty. Cynical, I know, but that makes sense. Now look, because what happened? Let's see whether the proof really is. Because just a month later, August 27th, just a month later, they reinitiated again and this is the title, believe it or not, to the next conference, the Second United Nations Conference to review progress made in the implementation of the Program of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. Make sure we understand what this is saying. This is talking about that Program of Action, remember? To disarm and destroy arms, store them, etc. And don't get lost in this long title, because what's it say at the end? In all its aspects. In all its aspects was mentioned 38 times in the Arms Trade Treaty. Some of the aspects sound good, okay? Like, quote, disarming insurgents, armed gang members, pirates, and terrorists. That sounds like a good aspect. What about this aspect? UN control of the manufacture, trafficking, circulation, brokering, trade, as well as tracing, finance, collection, and destruction of small arms and light weapons. What about that aspect? Does that sound good? I don't think so. What about Section 3, paragraphs 7 and 8 of the Program of Action that says, if a member state cannot get rid of privately owned small arms legislatively, then the control of customs, police, intelligence, and arms control will be placed under the power of a board of UN bureaucrats operating out of the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs. What about that aspect? That doesn't sound very good either, does it? So you look at this long thing and you go, well, that sounds fairly benign. Well, no. They're talking about the Program of Action. They're talking about in all of its aspects. What are those aspects? They're huge. Okay? Also, November 7th, what day was this? The day after the election. The day after the election, the United Nations General Assembly voted 157-0, including the United States. Our UN delegate voted 157-0 in favor of Resolution L11 that finalizes the Arms Trade Treaty in March of 2013. They're going to meet in New York to discuss this Arms Trade Treaty and finalize it. Okay? Now, I have some notes there. We'll skip them. Let's end where we began, at the Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epic of belief. It was the epic of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or for evil in the superlative degree of comparison only. Gun control is a black and white issue. I, for one, and I know you're the same, I'm not going to give in to the authorities that say, well, relatively, it's not that bad. Comparatively, it's not that bad. No, it is that bad. Gun control is a simple issue. It's a freedom issue. Okay? And it's alive and well. We need to be aware of it. We need to do something about it. So these last slides here go into Hort's question. What do we actually do about this? How do we restore the Constitution? What do we do? The real answer is restore the Constitution, because the Constitution has the solutions. Okay? Now, you can only talk about the problems so much. You can only talk about the violations of the Constitution so much before you start to talk about solutions. Otherwise, you're going to give in to one of two feelings. One is going to be apathy, and one's going to be anger. And apathy and anger don't fix anything. Don't provide solutions for America. Okay? We need to talk about solutions. Real solutions require a positive, optimistic involvement that revolves around doing and not just stewing. Now, notice the armed rebellion isn't one of the solutions. In my mind, armed rebellion would play right into what the tyrants want. They want a justification. They want a legitimate excuse to confiscate all weapons, and they'll get public support to do that, right? Armed rebellion is not the answer. And history teaches us that armed rebellion always leads to less freedom, not more freedom, because it sets the stage for anarchy. It sets the stage for dictatorship. And a dictator always has strong, big government solutions like taking everyone's guns. Okay? There's no doubt we must take action, but there's also equally no doubt that the action must be effective. And it must produce more freedom, not less. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you the golden nugget. Okay? Here's the 3 steps that's going to fix everything. This is the same thing I say with all my presentations. If you don't agree with me, I want you to challenge me. But if you do agree with me, I want you to commit to do something about it. Okay? These are the 3 steps that'll fix America. Educate yourself. Take it upon yourself to say, I'm going to learn more about the Constitution. I'm going to come to Constitution classes. I'm going to read books. Secondly, inform others. It's a numbers game. If you have enough people understand, what happens? The Constitution is reinstated. People understand it. They love it. They are empowered. And thirdly, become active in the solutions. Okay? I would submit that these really are the 3 answers to our country's problems. You need to educate yourself. You need to inform others. You need to become active in the solutions. If you do those 3 things, that's how we save America. Literally. That's what we do. Okay? Now, you can implement these things on your own. You can be a maverick. You can be a cowboy. Go out on your own and do these things. But the other option is to be part of an organization with equally committed and like-minded patriots who have the same passion for the Constitution, the same passion for effective programs of action. Okay? Henry David Thoreau We're about 4 more slides from being done, so don't worry. Henry David Thoreau says this: there are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root. I think that's the power of organization, the power of getting together with like-minded people. Because you can. Look, I am hacking away. Yeah, you are. You're hacking away at the branches. What if you're part of an organization that says we're going to strike at the root? And in gun control, what's the root? That's the question, right? If we're talking about gun control, how to fix it, we got to strike at the root. What is the root? Well, how are we really going to fix this thing? Let me play a little game of guess what the teacher's thinking, okay? Domestically, inside the United States, we talked about 3 entities or people or groups of people that are always trying to take our guns. I'll give you the first one. President. He always works with who? The Senate, through the treaties, and the State Department. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure Senator Enzi and Senator Barrasso are never going to vote against or for gun control. Okay? So we're set there. There's nothing we can do. They're going to vote against gun control. What about the President and State Department? How much power do you feel like you have over them? Not much. So you just kind of say, yeah, there's the apathy. That's what you're talking about. I'm feeling it pretty strong. There's my apathy. What do I do? Okay? What I would suggest is these guys are the branches. You can hack at these all day long, but they're the branches. If you want to strike at the root, we need to strike at the organization that's trying to take away the whole right of guns in the first place. Some people would say, let's get a militia organized. I would say you can get a militia organized all you want, but if there's a group that's going to take away guns, the militia won't mean anything. What's a militia without guns? So the organization I'm talking about is the United Nations. We need to revolve all our efforts in the gun control effort and in many different other efforts. We need to educate, inform, and activate around getting us out of the United Nations. How realistic is that? A lot of people will shake their heads. Let me tell you, in the freedom movement, there's a lot of times you just kind of deal with bad news and grin and bear it. Let me tell you something. There was a bill in 2011, February 2011, by Representative Ron Brown from Georgia. In the appropriations, House Bill 1, when they're talking about the appropriations for the money, because the House is in charge of doling out the money, he said, this amendment said, none of this money is going to go to the United Nations. None of it. We're not going to pay any dues. We're not going to fund them at all. How popular do you think that was? Never saw the light of day. Good answer, but wrong. Because we're going to talk about something positive today. 177 representatives voted for that. 177. Does that turn your head? It should. 177. All we need is 218. We're 31 votes away from turning us from paying dues to the United Nations. If the United States stops paying dues to the United Nations, what happens? It's over. Its back is broken. So that's a movement you can get behind. That's something you can talk to Senator Barrasso, Senator Enzi, Representative Lummis about. You bet. Something real, something we can really fix. What if you get a united effort together? What if you have an organization statewide and nationwide that's pushing that effort, that provides the materials to do that, sample bills, sample emails, etc. So you see the power of organization, the power of how that works. Get us out of the United Nations. Strike at the root. You can get ticked off all day long about the President and the Senate and the State Department. Don't worry about them. Because what happens when the United Nations is out of the picture, then gun control comes completely under the realm of the United States and the U.S. Constitution. And the United States and the U.S. Constitution is controlled by we the people. We don't want this foreign entity to come and try to change our Constitution, take away our rights. Get the foreign entity out of existence, and then we play the game and we're in charge. Because what's happening? They're the ones that are doing that, right? Okay? So the solution truly is found in the Constitution. Okay? The idea of not allowing treaties to change our Constitution, the concept of security, well-regulated militia, God-given right of the people to keep and bear arms, invalidating treaties made outside of the authority of the United States. All of these are solutions that the Constitution provides. The solution is in the Constitution. But in case you think, well, I'm off the hook, the solution really is in you, isn't it? I heard a mumble of the people. It's really not even the people. It's you. It's you. Each one of you. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to educate yourself? How are you going to inform others? How are you going to become organized and take part in saving this nation, doing your part? That's what it's about. We have the standard. Our Constitution isn't flawed. Our Constitution doesn't have problems. We the people have problems. Not holding people's feet to the fire, not living that way, not spreading that, not being moral and virtuous, right? Because our Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other. It falls on us. It falls squarely on us. I think it's exciting that 100 people show up and say, hey, I want to do something about this. Because we're not here just to learn about gun control and how bad it is. We're here to do something about it and make sure it doesn't happen. I'd invite you to get involved, educate yourself, inform others, and get organized in action. Thank you very much.